Welcome to the Hasn't Been 3 Days podcast with your hosts Justin and BJ. We talk about 3-day-old news, sports, and whatever else we seem to care about. You, the MVP listener, you listen in, you laugh, you hate on our takes, you send us an email, you write us a review, you do whatever you want, but just don't let us know unless it's been 3 days. So it's been a few days, Justin. How are you, man?
I'm doing wonderful. It is Tuesday of last week. Well, no, it's the last full week in April. So, we're getting through this month. It's post-Easter. Easter weekend was wonderful. Got to spend a lot of time with family and got to take in Easter service. It was all around really good.
How many services did your church have?
We ran 2.
Was that normal?
Yeah, for Easter, yeah, it has. I can't remember last year. I don't remember.
But is that normal Sunday? Is 2 services?
No. And we ran. I think we served right at 300 or a little bit over 300 people this weekend.
Cool,
which is pretty good for us. I mean, we've been running. Just probably shy of 200. So we probably saw an extra 100 or so come to the doors.
Nice, good job.
But it kind of gets us ready to go for our upcoming move. This upcoming weekend will be our last weekend, so it'll be kind of a celebration service and slash, last chance for baptisms in our church. I think last time I heard the number was like 15. We could be up to 25, somewhere in that range. So we could have one of our biggest services, which is awesome to hear and see. So,
yeah.
Those are always fun services to be a part of. So a lot of things go behind the scenes on those things. You're trying to accommodate the people that, just like, have that random, kick in the pants. And they they come forward, right? And you want to accommodate, you just don't want to be like, well, some people, they're always, not that they're trying to find an excuse, but they're just like, well, I don't have clothes or I don't have this. And we're like, we got you. We got everything for you. Yeah.
So your church does spontaneous baptisms?
Yep.
Okay.
So, yep.
Cool.
So yeah, we're always prepared for people. And if you remember anything about our church, they have to go all the way downstairs, down a long hallway to get to the back stairs to get to the baptismal. So it's a process to communicate, like, when the last one is, because the baptismal is, behind the worship team. So it's kind of interesting just kind of working as part of the production team and communicating all that with our worship pastor and stuff like that. So there's a lot that goes into it. Even when it's spontaneous, you have to kind of hope you plan for those spontaneous moments, which on the flyer is kind of something I enjoy helping out with and being a part of. So
I'm gonna filter what's in my heart and in my mind right now, but spontaneous baptisms, there's a place and they're good. To be used in manipulation is not okay. Let me just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
So
I think as long as it's, that there's support, afterwards, and they're they're following following that, not just doing it, for the moment.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, I'm with you on that. So
discipleship is. I was very passionate about discipleship in my ministry career, and discipleship is a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And baptism is a part of that journey. It's not necessarily the beginning or the end. It's a part of the journey. And and like you just said, you've got to be willing to walk with people pre and post baptism, and at least give those opportunities. I'm talking about the production side of it from a manipulation standpoint. You got to be very careful with.
Yeah, no, I can understand where your heart is from being a pastor and understanding that.
Well, and it's I'm letting more out than I should, but even being a parent.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It's anyway. We won't go there.
Well, then how was your weekend?
Oh, we had a great weekend. It was a busy weekend with kids. I had my kids this weekend. Took Ronnie to a basketball camp, and so that was fun. And then um, our pastor retired on Easter
Yep,
Sunday.
that's
His
what you
last
said.
Sunday was Sunday. So they had a retirement thing for him Saturday afternoon. We didn't make it to that because we had our kids and we celebrated Elliot's birthday Saturday, so that was fun too. And went to dinner and ice cream and did all the things with the kids. That was fun. And then then Good Friday. Before that, we went to a Good Friday community service in this town we go to church in, and there was 3 or 4 churches combined for that,
Okay.
and that was awesome. I did such a good job. I told my wife afterwards, I said, I studied for this. I went to school. That's the same thing. Went to school for this, studied for this, lived it my whole life, was in it as a vocation for 12 plus years. And this is Easter weekend, I learned some new things, and that was pretty cool for me.
Yeah.
Those new revelations, those new things that God pours into us are pretty cool. We had a combined Good Friday service with 4 different churches, I believe it was, and 3 of the pastors shared kind of a little bit of a sermonette, if you will. And it was really cool. And I one of the cool perspectives, I'll share this because we're just
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
spitballing tonight. But so this guy was talking about the choice that Pilate had between Jesus and Barabbas.
Yep.
And when he released, it was customary for those of you that are listening that don't know, it was customary for the Passover
Yep.
for Pilate to release a prisoner as a sign of grace, as a sign of forgiveness, if you will, I guess. And when Jesus was on trial, Pilate, if you remember, if you go read the story, if you heard the story this weekend, great. Pilate came to the conclusion that there was no grounds to put Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
And so he took Jesus to the crowd with Barabbas, who was a murderer, who was a rioter, who was just an all-around bad guy. And the crowd, thanks to the Pharisees and the religious leaders causing a riot, if you will, of sort, said, "We want Barabbas. We want this horrible criminal." And this pastor that was talking about it, it was so cool because he said, "You know what? Jesus would have said the same thing."
Yeah.
Jesus would have said, "Give us Barabbas." And I just thought that just hit me in a different way this weekend, thinking about that. But then from a personal level, to think that, Jesus's purpose, we talk about this, I talked about this in the pastorate. If he came to save one person, it was worth it. And he was going to that cross for Barabbas.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to make it personal, you and I are Barabbas.
100%.
We are not deserving of a second chance. We are not deserving of a third, fourth, fifth, whatever chance it is. And Jesus said, "I want to give you one more chance." I just thought that was pretty cool. So we had a good weekend. Easter Sunday, it was also, like I said, pastor's retirement last Sunday. We are a church that normally runs 30 to 40 people maybe on a good Sunday. I mean, there had to have been 110 people at least.
Yeah.
Standing room only in this little sanctuary. You've been there, know.
Yeah.
Every row was filled. It was packed. It was awesome. It was really cool.
You almost felt like you needed to flip the church sideways so you could get everybody in, right?
Yeah.
Open up the accordion doors.
For church, they're always open, and there's
yeah.
usually people sitting in there. And this Sunday there was extra people in there.
Yeah.
It was, the overflow was full. It was good. It was a good day. I told the pastor afterwards, they've become really, really good. They're becoming friends, and Steve and Ginger, and Steve He was very emotional. He did a great job. I told him afterwards, I said, I don't know how you were going to do this. I've left churches before, going to another church, and your final Sunday, I said, I've never left on Easter Sunday as your final Sunday, let alone your final Sunday of your ministry career.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how he was going to do it. And it was a normal service. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to preach the gospel and preach Jesus. And then after it was over, he gave a few words as he was getting ready to leave, and he got emotional, and it was really cool. But after the service, I just went up to him and just said, you're not done. You may be retiring, but he's definitely not done. So, shout out to, they don't listen, but Steve and Ginger, and his last name is Hopper, Steve Hopper, Pastor Steve Hopper. And he said, after this Sunday, I'm going to become a church hopper. And I thought that was pretty corny, but it was pretty cool. So I laughed.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, you were talking about, Barabbas and Jesus. We went and saw that new King of Kings animated movie this weekend, and it was really cool to see that story kind of just played out in a different, this story's been told a bunch of different ways, right? It's been told, it's been animated, it's been, I think they did a really, the movie, it's based off of a Charles Dickens, from his perspective, loosely inspired from, his books. But it was kind of a cool way they did it. They had like Charles Dickens as a character, telling the story, but then telling a story, a Christmas story, and then it turns into him telling this story of a king, and then he went into the story, and then the movie is or the animation is like the story of Jesus, his life, but then it's him and his son, and the son's cat is part of the journey, like they're like observers of the whole story. It's really cool. It was really good. Like the kids and I and Becky went and saw it, and so it was one of those things that it was a perfect Good Friday movie to go to, as part of our Good Friday journey that we took on for the weekend. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, my mom said that they went to see it with my nephews and brother and his family as well. So I'm sure it did pretty well.
Yeah, I thought it went well. It was cool to see that they just how they portray it. How movies can just kind of take it whatever they want or how they want to do it. Hollywood, right? Hollywood.
Yeah. Yep.
So, anyways, all right. This could be a soapbox episode.
The one where they get on their soapbox.
I don't know which soapbox, how tall this is going to get, but it's got to be just above, the crap sometimes, I guess. But so I brought up something. I don't know which way you want to go. Should we talk about let's talk about the news first.
Okay.
All right. So the news is that the Pope has passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked you a question earlier. We were driving through town today, Bree and I, and on the way back from our tennis match tonight, and the flag was, there's only one place I had the flag that was half-mast, and Bree goes, why is that half-mast? Because there was the only one. And I was like, well, the Pope passed away. And so I asked you, I said, do you think we should have the flag half-mast for the Pope? And, I say yes. You were like, yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because of the cultural... This is not really a soapbox, but we're just giving some credence to, or just talking about the fact that he's passed away, and then what could come next of identifying the next Pope, and where that's maybe it's already happened. Some might say, maybe what the cat, how soon we'll see the white smoke. But
well, yeah, first, to your point, to your question, I want to say this. And those of you that are listening that know me and know a little bit about my history, you know I do have a deep appreciation for the Catholic faith and the Catholic practice. I am not Catholic, but I do respect the Catholic faith and their practice. And but as I have two Catholic people on my staff right now, and I told them today as we were talking about it, I said, I'm not Catholic because there's things that I just don't agree with, and so that's neither here nor there. However, I will respect the role of the Pope forever because of who the office, if you will, the historical value that the Pope brings to the Christian faith, for sure. But so yeah, I would agree with you. I think the as Americans, you know, why is our flag, I mean, the Pope's not American, why is our flag at half mast for that? Well, because it's a global thing. This is a worldwide situation, and it's something that we honor the reverence that this man holds in this office. And I think it's very honoring and respectful for us to, as a country, to respect that office. So I would agree. I think, you know, don't make it mandatory, you know, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all those things. But if you want to put your flags at half mast for, no pun intended, for the Pope, then
Yeah.
by all means, go for it. But so how he gets elected, this is something I learned today, and I just read this as well. So according to ABC News, and this was also confirmed with my staff today, the College of Cardinals will come together after the time of mourning has passed for the Pope. So there will not be an election of a new Pope for at least until after his funeral, and then there's another 9, 10, up to 13, 20 days, according to this article, where they will begin to discuss the next election of the new Pope. So the College of Cardinals is worldwide. All of these cardinals across the denomination, across the faith, come together, and all of the cardinals that are under the age of 80 are allowed to vote.
Yeah.
Okay, they're allowed to vote.
It's like 200 and some, like 240 or something like that. I think it's like 240 if I remember correctly, or somewhere that number in that range.
And they have to elect the new Pope by a 2/3 vote. A 2/3 vote. And so that's why you see the different smoke colors. So the black smoke, fumata nera in Italian, indicates an inconclusive vote, while the white smoke, fumata bianca, signifies that a new Pope has been elected. If 3 days pass with no Pope elected, voting can be suspended to allow the cardinals more time to pray and reflect over the people that they're choosing to vote on. It is a open ballot, if you will. I'm trying to find, what I heard today was that the new Pope, the Pope cannot be under the new elected Pope cannot be under the age of 80.
Cannot be under the age of 80?
That's what they said to me today. I'm looking for a confirmation of that, but because they want to make sure that the Pope has lived a life that has warranted being of this position, and having the church and the faith put their faith and trust in this man being the man of God. Now I can't see it from this article if that is the case, but
I don't know if that's true.
Oh.
Only because some of the people that they're talking about listing are in their 70s. I'm just Googling like a couple of these people, like they're in their 70s still. So maybe it's been more of like everybody who has been elected has always been above 80. And maybe because like the one thing I said it could happen, I said this to you pre-show, is there's a couple that are, you know, on the list that, you know, they're African American. Or I mean, not African American, they're African. I mean, essentially, if I remember correctly. One from Congo and one from I don't remember where the other one's from, but they're in their like their 60s and maybe early 70s. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough to be dangerous, but
Yeah, I just pulled up another article to see, and it said that the top candidates, if you will, the short list, there are 3 that I see that are under 80,
yeah.
4 that are under 80. There's one that's actually 80. Um,
I'm wondering if it's something to be that it's we've never or there's never been one that's been under 80 before.
there has. This says that
Okay.
somebody was considered too old to be elected pope in 2013 at the age of 76.
Okay.
Um, but they elected him pope in 1978. Somebody under 80 was elected pope. So yeah, I mean 70, 72, 71. There's another one that's 80. Then the talk about a possible when there's never been an American pope.
Okay. Yep.
But there is
And
somebody that's he's 69 years old, and he is considered one of the archbishops that's cardinals that's in the running as well, I guess. So yeah.
yeah, like I said, I don't know enough to be dangerous. I mean, I'm just picking up what I read on on X or Twitter, which is always entertaining. But you find articles at other places but anyways, to your point though, it's an interesting. Now, when they go through this process, do they stay in the room or in a room or wherever they're at the chapel or whatever? Do they stay there the whole time during this process of voting or whatever the process is when you're going through this time? Do you know if they stay all together at one time, or is it just kind of like you come in and you leave like a voting booth? It's probably the bad way to put it, but I don't really know. Like I didn't know in your research or understanding how it worked or how they told you, but
I don't know that for sure. It does say that it is a sacred and secretive process.
yeah.
It's not a popularity contest or campaign. And then let's back up just a second because I just read this. There's always front runners known as poppable candidates that have considerable necessary qualities to be considered pope. Any baptized Catholic male is eligible, though only cardinals have been selected since 1378.
Okay.
So the person that is elected or called upon for this must receive 2/3 of the vote from those cardinals that are under the age of 80 and eligible to participate. So if you're over the age of 80, you cannot participate. So I think it was backwards what I was hearing.
Correct.
I think you have to be under the age of 80 to be elected pope.
Gotcha. That would make sense. I mean,
yeah.
For as much as they don't, you want somebody who's there to, make decisions and help the process. It's like, do we want a president that's over 80 years old? It's not helpful, especially when we can elect one at 35 or older. But we won't go there. We won't go there. But anyway, yeah. So it's interesting. This will be the 200 and the new. Let's see here.
So there's been a history of popes that are under 80, so that must not be accurate because I'm reading another article here that says that the Catholic Church canon law states that a person must be at least 35 years old to be consecrated as a bishop, which is a requirement for being a cardinal and eligible for election to the papacy. However, in theory, any baptized male Catholic, including a layman, could be elected pope. So there you have it.
There you go.
There is no explicit age limit. The youngest pope in history, Benedictine IX, was reported between 12 and 20 years old.
Yeah, and that was like in 1032 or something like that. I think I just read that as well. It was like early on. But the youngest cardinal elector, one of the youngest cardinals out there that can elect or as part of an elector, he's only 45 years old, which is interesting because everybody else seems to be older during this process.
Yeah.
Because that's
Well,
what they want. So
you have to be 35 to be a cardinal, and then
yep.
that's to be able to be, or a bishop, which is then you're eligible to be a cardinal.
Yeah. So
You have to be at least 35 years old and have been ordained a priest for at least 5 years. And here, this might move us to our next soapbox. You must have a doctorate or
an honorary.
it says
Please say honorary.
you
Please
must
say honorary.
have a doctorate or licentate in sacred scripture or theology or canon law. Does not say honorary or not on that. So, so we're going to be getting a new pope in the world here coming up, but there are requirements for certain things, and you have a soapbox you want to get on when it comes to honorary degrees. What's your take on somebody getting an honorary doctorate in what is Tony Kornheiser's honorary doctorate in?
Yeah.
I think it's words and numbers or something like that.
So, I'm going through a season of looking for jobs within my company, and it's always interesting trying to apply for jobs. And, they're like, oh, you got to have a degree, blah, blah, blah. And you could have a degree in animal stitching, stuffed animal stitching or whatever. I don't know. Whatever they give you degrees for. But 10 years of experience is always entertaining. That doesn't play out very well. Actually, one job I looked into today, pretty much I wasn't going to get paid for my experience, even though the job, requires me to know what I've done for the 10 years to do it. But since it's listed in a pharmacy, and since I've never been a pharmacy tech or anything like that, I will get paid the lowest amount. And I would actually take a very decent sized pay cut if I went that route. It's interesting. So honorary degrees. Okay, so I'm not going to say who it was about because I'll get killed for it. I'm literally killed for it. And I don't think the podcast needs to go off the rails for this reason. But I read an article about somebody who passed away. Probably did great thing, or no, not probably. I will say did great things for a nonprofit and brought awareness to things. And then they did, obviously they passed away, unfortunately. And the article I read was that they became an honorary, they got their honorary degree. The family was presented with an honorary degree. And we hear this from other things. And I asked the question is like, I asked the question in this way is like, is the honorary degree, like, what's it really, is it really mean that much to the family that they have this degree, honorary degree that has a person's name on it that is no longer with them? Like, what does that signify? Is it bad for me to think that way regarding getting somebody a degree that way? Like, it's not really, is it honoring their life by giving them this degree? Isn't the honoring of, what they've done for a nonprofit or creating a nonprofit, doesn't that mean more than getting an honorary degree from, a college that maybe they were only there for 2 semesters, but they had a publicized name? I don't know. I kind of got killed for it for my wife. We were kind of going back and forth because I kind of equate it to, if I was applying for a job, could I list an honorary degree on my job application and say, technically I have a degree? But if I never went there, and because I have a name that people know and people can Google versus just being Joe Schmo, does that 10 years experience lessen than somebody who has an honorary degree? I don't know. I just, yeah.
Well, I don't think the number's 10.
Well, no, I'm using it for my...
Yes, and you know that I'm going to take your side on it when it comes to the experience versus degree in a job search, because I'm on the other side of this with somebody who I have 2 earned degrees, and yet I'm overqualified for any job that I apply for because I have these 2 degrees, and somebody thinks that I don't want, a job that I'm technically on paper qualified for.
Yeah.
And so, but I've said to you, it took me less than 10 years to earn those 2 degrees. So from a component of a job search, 10 years should be equivalent to a degree, in my opinion. But to your point of an honorary degree, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I would probably side with you more so on this. But however, this person you're talking about, I don't know who it is, and don't mention him. I mean,
no.
but it probably was more than 10 years. It was probably a lifetime award. And so when somebody gives their life to a certain cause or a certain thing, and a school or a place that wants to honor their life devotion to a particular area of growth or study or education,
Yeah.
and they want to impose that, does it diminish their efforts post life? No. But to your point, does it help you to get a job because you have a honorary doctorate? I know some people it has in fields that I've been affiliated with.
Yeah.
And some people are given that so that they can have a title. So they are given a title and then given the honorary degree because they're in a position that the status of that position demands a degree.
Yeah. What if the person is doing, they've done great research, and it could be that they did it for, you know, they were an adult, and they passed away later in life, and they did it for 20, 30 plus years and brought awareness to things. But what if the place that gave them an honorary degree, was something because that university or wherever they got it is helping, facilitate whatever they're doing, right? Or you just have somebody who's like, yeah, I brought awareness to things, for a few years to something, but then I just went to go be a normal person and went to a college, and there's no, I didn't go there because the university was gonna fund this or get funding to do this. I just went there to go be a student, but then I unfortunately pass away. I get my honorary degree. I mean, what does that really truly mean a lot to the family? And I say that, but not having any idea how to relate that because I've never dealt with it. I've never been a part of that, and I hope that I never have to sit back and eat these words later on. I don't know. I just kind of threw it out there, and I've never. I don't think me and you've ever talked about this before, and
well, I have a very probably an unpopular opinion on this, and again, it comes from I think you're talking about a very delicate situation when it comes to somebody who's deceased and their family. I think if that's a way somebody wants to honor that, so be it. I'm not going to argue that one bit. There's going to be no advantage gained by giving an honorary doctorate to a deceased person.
Yeah. Well, and that's where my conversation started. And then that turned into, okay, what if nothing happens to them and they just get one? Are they more qualified than the next person?
No.
Yeah, that's kind of where my conversation went.
Yeah, so we're going to be on the same side of this. And here's my problem with this. I know somebody, and I won't mention their name either, who's received an honorary doctorate for their lifetime achievement in their field. They've done it for 50 years, and they've done a great job at it, and it's been great. And so this school, and I will say the school, it's my alma mater. So my alma mater has given honorary doctorates to people, and they don't even offer a master's degree.
Oh yeah.
How do you give a degree when you don't even have the programs that warrant giving an earned one?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
That's my problem with it. If you're going to give an honorary doctorate, then make sure that doctorate can be earned by somebody else as well.
Yeah. And I think that's why situations like yours that you're bringing up, which I had no idea about, to be honest with you, it's just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to keep your good name because you're doing it for somebody that has has a name out there?
It's a status symbol.
It's status. Yeah. It just makes your school or university, college, university, whatever, higher education look better. So I don't know what I don't know. And this is just me, sitting back, and I don't know.
Because
I don't get it. I
if you're
don't.
going to give an honorary doctorate and you don't even have a doctorate degree to begin with in your program, then you're really just making it look foolish, in my opinion. Now, if you give an honorary doctorate in a program that you have because of lifetime achievement or what have you, then at least somebody can have something to compare it to. So, like in your situation, somebody could say, I have 20 years experience in this field of study, and somebody wants to give, doesn't even have to be a doctorate, just any honorary degree. Like I told you, I said, it makes no sense how a hiring manager can discredit somebody who's given 10, 15, 20 years to a company and to a department and say, well, you don't have a degree. No, you know what they have? They have something more valuable than that degree because they have life experience on the ground working for you, loyalty, longevity, and passion for what you're doing. Why don't you honor that instead of just what a piece of paper is behind your name? And that's coming from somebody who has 2 earned degrees.
Yeah, that kind of leads into what we almost talked about last week a little bit about like the work environment, leadership in general, right? Like just the way like leadership unfortunately gets structured in some places is that we get lost on what a piece of paper says and don't really peel back, be like, what would be a benefit? And there are good leaders out there that recognize that and they will fight for it. But man, it gets so lost in the shuffle sometimes.
It does if our standard is the paper.
Well, yeah.
And here's what I've told you this too, and I'm not saying anything I haven't said to your face. There's a difference between experience and education too, in the sense that there's things that you earn in education that should help you in experience that somebody without the education may not know and only get to experience through hard knocks. And that's where we're coming at from leadership. When I've said to you numerous times, I'm like, that's poor leadership, not because of experience or lack thereof. That's poor leadership because what you gained in those degrees you've earned, you didn't learn anything. You didn't learn how to apply it. And what I feel like I can bring to the table, like I'll just use me as an example. I learned things in school that have helped me to apply those in the real world. And so that should help me to be a better leader. Does that mean somebody who doesn't have a degree can't be as good of a leader as me? No, they can absolutely be that.
Yeah.
But when you have learned something, you've been taught something, it does give you a step up, at least a head start, if you will. It's like giving somebody a 5-second head start because you've taught them something they didn't have to learn on their own. And I think that's the difference. But now when people don't apply what they've learned, then they're setting themselves backwards and the degree doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's what I try to say to you. When you come to me and you say these things and you know I'm on your team, you know I'm all for you getting an opportunity. But at these other places where I'm like, okay, but this is what you would have learned in school. This is what you would have been taught. And this is how you could have a different perspective. And that's really what it's about. Education is about perspective. That's what it is. And it takes time to get that.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that, not you particular, anybody.
In general, yes.
Yeah. Then all you have is your experience and your time and not necessarily the learned part of that could be from other experiences and other things.
Yeah. Soapbox BJ. Soapbox BJ brought to you by Thelander Leadership Consulting.
So that I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, I have a business now that I call with leadership in the name. I have a degree in leadership. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing if it's not being used, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I did learn, and this, I think I'll give it to John Maxwell. I don't know if he's the one that said it or not, but if leaders that are not the leaders that don't have followers are just taking a walk. If you don't have anybody following you as a leader, then you're just out going for a walk.
Is there a higher percentage of leaders that just choose to maybe not utilize other people within their that report to them, to use them to their advantage to help their leadership skills,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, you can use the word threatened, or just don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to utilize other people's skills to actually better themselves to make them look better as leaders. Do you think there's more of those type of people, or do you think, obviously I haven't worked at every place and you haven't worked at every place, or do you think there's enough people out there that know how to utilize the people that report to them to make them a good leader?
I think there's various types of leaders. That's a given, right?
Yeah.
It's no cookie cutter title. However, you have the leaders that are driven, type A. They go do it. They're going to get their hands dirty. They're going to lead by example, and they're able to take people with them. But they're the ones that are the arrowhead, if you will, to the shovel that's doing the digging.
Yeah.
And then you also have leaders that will be the handle to that shovel, and they'll help others know their role and get in a position to where together their efforts make an impact. You talk about like Jesus's leadership model, and was to be a leader, to be a shepherd. A shepherd as a leader is not leading from necessarily from the front. A shepherd is leading his sheep from behind, and he's guiding them. And that's a different model than some of these other leaders that are out here gregarious and all this. It's about me, 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 and if you get on my coattail, we're going to all get there together. There's a place for that in certain places, but there's also a place for that leader to kind of come behind and develop other leaders around them. So yes, to your point, to your question, are there leaders out there that are threatened by other quality people? Absolutely. And I think that's the key in leadership. If you're going to be a leader and you're going to be threatened by the person you're trying to lead, then you're not a good leader.
Yeah.
You need
Oh,
to
that.
lead them in such a way that you can make them better, because by making them better, you will also become better.
Well, yeah, that has been a season that I've dealt with for the last, I don't know. I've been through those struggles. It's just like, if I wanted your job, I would have applied for it. But
Right.
you have people here that want to support it, want to do good for jobs that I currently have, the jobs I had 10 years ago. It's always been the same. You just run into certain leaders that are just like, they just can't get past it. They're just, I've never understood it. And maybe it's just because I come at it from a different angle in leadership, and I'm always said that I'm different than everybody else.
Mhm.
Is always what I'm told. You just lead a little bit differently, and it just seems you have more passion for it sometimes, and I don't like hearing that. To me, we should all have passion for a job that you do, or just go do something else.
Well, that's
So
the problem.
yeah,
That's the problem, and I've talked about this recently in my own life. There's a difference between having a passion for something and then also having purpose in that.
correct. Purpose. Yep.
And if you can have passion for something and still not be purposeful,
No. Yeah.
and there's a danger in that. There's always a balance in things. That's what I've been taught all my life. Shout out to Rod Thelander for teaching me about balance. But if again in leadership, it's about balance. You have to have balance. And so if you get out of balance, you get to one extreme. Any extreme is a negative.
Mm-hmm.
People might say, well, I have 300% growth in this part of my business or what have you. But what are you losing because you've strived so hard for 300% growth?
Yeah.
You've probably lost a lot of good people along the way. So balance brings us back to, well, if I could get 300% in 6 weeks, what if I tailed that back to 150%, but everybody came with us and it
Mm-hmm.
took 24 weeks and we all got the results of this benefit and growth. And that's the difference. You can have passion for something. That's where I think, and you and I have talked about this too, that's where I think you struggle, and your weakness in that is your passion comes out as, I'm going to be the spearhead and I'm going to drive this, and this is the way it should be because I've tried it in so many different ways. I know I'm going to do it. This is the way you should do it. Well, that's not always good leadership either. So there's a balance to that.
Yeah. No, yeah, we've had plenty of those conversations.
But I've also,
100%.
and I just knocked you, so let me praise you. If your leader can't come up to you and see a Justin Rabel and say, you have 10 years experience and you bring this, I'm going to listen to you and then make a decision that's going to move us all together forward. If we're never, this isn't leadership. This is just common sense. But here's a nugget for you. If you fail to be open-minded to learn, then you are setting yourself up to die. When we are not open to learn, we are not open to growth. And when we stop growing, we die.
Yeah.
Now, you might say, BJ, that's extreme. That's not good leadership. No, it's extreme in the words, but if you think about it, there's a process in there. If you stop growing, you become complacent, you become stagnant. What happens to stagnation? It dies.
Yeah.
You don't find life in stagnant ponds. It's dead. So you have to keep growing. Well, how do we keep growing? You have to be open-minded to learn. And that's what I feel like the balance I've brought to your life to say, yeah, you've had all this experience to know these things the right way, but still be open to listen to a new perspective. It's like I tell my kids, you don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to go along with what somebody else says, but be open to learn from it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, these are all things me and you do have in-depth conversations about. It's not always talking about sports.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we do. I mean, but we've been through a lot of this recently, leadership conversations. So, in the struggles of just purpose and just, sometimes also it plays a lot of game about what to do for you personally, your journey, and then trying to do what's best for your family as well. So
yeah,
and that's the family one is always which you could throw. That's the purpose, right? That could be a part of the purpose conversation sometimes. But
well, and let's even take this deeper, okay?
Okay, let's go.
Because this is what I've struggled with recently too. And purpose is the same. It's in the same vein as what I'm about to say. And I'm struggling with this, so I'm preaching to the choir here, if you will. But your identity cannot be wrapped up in what you do. It doesn't matter how much it provides for your family or not. Your identity as a human being cannot be wrapped up in what you do. Your identity is in who you are and whose you are. And that when you're a striver, when you're an achiever, when you're a doer, when you're a type A, when you're a go-getter, when you have passion, when you have purpose, you can get lost in the fact that becomes your identity. It happened to me. My identity was I was a pastor. I was in ministry. That was my identity. That was my calling. That was my purpose. And since I've been outside of church ministry as a vocation, as my job, I've struggled with what is my purpose, is how I define it, how I say it, but that's really not the root of it. The root of my problem is my identity was wrapped up in what I did. It still is. I still struggle with that because I feel like there's no purpose in what I'm doing. And what God speaks into me is your identity is not in what you do, BJ. Your identity is not in what you do, Justin. Your identity is that you are my child and you are mine, and I will give you purpose. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. But we lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I could sense that it needed to come out. This is BJ, thanks for sharing all of that.
Well, I know you're going through it. And here's the thing. I mean, we talk about this, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute. I mean, we got a really cool review. We've had a similar review in person with other people that have got on our podcast and shared how much this means to them to listen to us go through things. But you're going through it now. And there's times when you go through a season where you feel like, what's the point? And we're talking about vocation here. We're not talking about thankfully we're not talking about life and death, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But it still matters. It's still a part of who we are.
Yeah, and that's been the whole thing, like I know, like, the people that I've shared with what I'm doing, and now I guess I've just shared with the world too, and all of these countries that listen to us. But, everybody keep, and I want them to, because it keeps me grounded and keep me thinking about things. Is like just asking, like, "Hey, have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard?" And I'm like, I don't. It'll happen. I mean, that's where I find like peace about like looking at the situation. Like to me, to stress out about it right now, like that's not going to be helpful at all. Because I know that if it's meant to be, and God has a plan for it, He'll provide, and it's not like I'm in a dire straits of any sorts or anything. But I do know, and I've said this to you, I do know my value. My value as a worker and my value as a person at home, that's where I have two identities, right? Like, I know, like, the things that.
Hey. Put that on that beat. Nope.
Second. BJ, are you there?
I am here, yeah.
Could you not hear me?
I could not hear you.
I wonder if the podcast heard me.
I don't know.
Maybe I accidentally muted myself in a good spot because I was just rambling. Who knows? Guess we're just gonna.
Like, he's talking. I can't hear him. I'm just gonna let him go because I hope it's coming through.
I don't think it was recording. It's probably God's way of saying, "Hey, just shut up, Justin. You're just rambling." I don't know. I mean, I do have, our microphones have these, like, this little red button sometimes that I accidentally I don't feel like I was even moving around. Anyways, could be a bunch of dead air there. That's what we're going to find out.
Yeah, you'll have to edit that if it isn't.
No, because it'll just sound weird. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways,
so this segment brought to you by Thelander Leadership Consulting, where we offer leadership consulting, but we also offer bookkeeping services. So if you're a business owner and you're looking for your books to be organized, your financial future to be analyzed and commented on, give us a call, 217-209-2439. Talk to the owner directly. We're running a special, still running the special of April. 50% off all new clients that start up with Thelander Leadership Consulting. Give us a call today. Let us handle the details so you can focus on what matters most, because everybody needs a little TLC.
Yeah, I need a hug right now. Because I feel like I was just laying out my heart, and then I think it just got muted completely. What I was saying is, no, I'm not going to get into it again. It's all good.
Yeah.
No, but everything that BJ has laid out, this is why. But you're going to talk about some reviews, and we're going to work that into a conversation about
as we wrap this up.
Maybe, I don't know, about what we do, what our purpose is.
As we wrap this episode up, and we've had a good time of getting on our soapboxes, but also sharing from the heart. And if you didn't get to hear all of Justin's, or if he edits it out, email us.
I'm not going to edit it out. It's going to be either a blank spot, and I'll let you guys fill it in however you want, and then we'll go from there.
The commercial,
yeah. We might. I don't know, man.
So if you listen to the podcast and you have some comments or questions for us today, email us the number 3 dayoldpodcast@gmail.com, or send us a review on. You can follow us on our link tree that we post in our on our posts, so you can listen to this. But we got our first written review this week. We've had a couple reviews that from our friends and family that say how much they enjoy listening to us, but we got our first review this week.
First one on Apple Podcasts.
On Apple Podcasts, yes. I apologize.
Let's specify there, yeah.
So the title of it says, "Love It." And it says, "A great lighthearted podcast between friends that also goes to the depth on occasion. It's like grabbing coffee with a good friend and catching up on life." So there you have it.
I start crying.
So
I wonder what coffee flavor it would be.
What coffee flavor would it be?
Jamaican me crazy.
We do like the Jamaican blend.
Yeah.
So,
I don't really have a. Just give me a house blend. I'm good.
yeah.
Snickerdoodle
So
with French vanilla creamer.
if you listen to us, give us a review, send us an email. Coming up in the next few episodes, couple episodes, maybe even the next episode, we'll see. We have the long-awaited interview is coming. So we're teasing it tonight. We're giving you a glimpse. Be listening to the Hasn't Been 3 Days podcast for the next interview coming up in the next couple of weeks. Long-awaited interview. I won't give it away because we don't want to jinx it, but it's coming. What you've been waiting for is coming.
What we've been waiting for this whole time?
What I've been waiting for.
What BJ's been waiting for? Oh, is this going to be the apology episode? Just joking.
We're gonna
Yeah,
complete the circle.
we're going to complete the circle. Yeah, we I can guarantee it probably won't be next week.
Yeah, no, it'll be within the next 3 weeks. We'll just say that.
For sure. Yeah, we got a lot of things coming up for all of us, really, to be honest with you.
Yep.
So that kind of gets into it's like, what's your next few days, 3 days look like for you?
Yeah, next few days we got some kids activities and we got some busyness happening, track meets and other things, and so we got that going on. But other than that, it's kind of normal life and work and just going about things. So what about you?
Yeah, so week is packed with tennis meets and matches. Bree, who's been on the injured reserve, just got off injury reserve on Monday and went to her first match this year that she was actually able to participate on the court. So she did that tonight, and then she has one Thursday, and then the weekend is it's moving. It's moving weekend. The church is moving. We are having our final service, packing up, and hopefully the new space is ready. Because we are looking to pack up the church and start the week of that and get things going from there.
So my question to you is this, like, you're moving this week as a church or this weekend. What does that mean? Like, will you guys stay the same name? Is there a new name coming as well? Or
Nope.
Nope.
No new name, just new location.
Are you going to drop the E off a point since you won't be by South Point?
We were never by South Point to begin with.
Yeah, but now you'll be completely across town.
No, I think there's something to do with like branding that we don't want to change.
Well, that makes sense.
I don't think we want to put a big red X across the E's. But no, so what it'll entail, I mean, there's supposed to be a moving committee that's supposed to be a part of this, but I haven't seen anything laid out yet, and I have a feeling that as long as chairs and the audio equipment and the projectors and TVs get put up in the new space, we can have service. And so I think the ultimate goal through this week is to start packing up the things that can be moved on Sunday after church. So Sunday we'll have our last service, and then the plan is to have a U-Haul there and start packing up the audio equipment, all the chairs that need to be transported over to the new property, and then load and unload everything. And then we'll have until the end of April to get the rest of the stuff off the property. So,
well, I think
it's going to be busy.
I think after you guys get moved and after we have this upcoming interview, I think we need to have at least the 3 staff that I know at your church, of your pastor, your youth pastor, and your worship pastor, all on the show. It would be cool. We don't have to do them all at the same time, but we could have them on the same show and just do different interview clips with them. But I would love to have Doug and Brad and Brian on the show to talk about post-move and what's ahead, and just their viewpoint on what it's been like to be on staff during this process.
Yeah, we've talked about, and I've reached out to Doug and Brad before. I haven't with Brian yet. Talking about them, and we were trying to get them on and find a time that would work, and that's partially me dropping the ball on finding time to get them in between this time. But yeah, no, that's definitely on the schedule. I know Brad listens to us. He called us out on that one episode that we didn't know what I still
Load
don't
management.
load management. I got a text message from him that just says, during your episode when I listened to it, all I was doing is screaming load management. Load management. And he was actually listening to the episode when he was on vacation, so that was awful nice of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. He said that totally out of the blue. So it's always interesting to find out who's listening and the why they're listening. So,
yep. Well, thank you for listening, and we do have some good things coming up. We've had a good night tonight. Thanks for coming up on the soapbox with us. If you have any opinions or thoughts or any insights you want to add to us, give us an email, shout out. The number 3.
Fact finding you, you just fact find us, and we'll correct it. Yeah,
yep.
We're all about making sure we're right.
The number 3 dayoldpodcast@gmail.com. Hasn't been 3 days. Podcast. It's been fun again once to be with my co-host Justin, and we're glad you joined us tonight. So here's to a lack of irrelevant age news. We'll see you next time.
See ya.